Today we're going to be finishing some new maple cabinets. So you can see that all of the floor has been masked off with this red rosin paper, available at your local improvement store for about $13.97. Over here I have from Sherwin-Williams the Sherwood brand, which is the same as their previous brand, Promar. This high build satin lacquer on your left, and then a high build sanding sealer, which is Lacquer Easy Sealer, on your right. And then over here we have our masking tape gun, our stain brush, our wiping stain, miscellaneous materials here. So this particular client wants to go ahead and have the inside of the cabinets all clear coated and the outside of the cabinets all stained. So I went ahead and masked off for all of that. Even though you have the green masking paper, which is meant for latex and oil base as opposed to the brown stuff, we still need to be super careful only to put the stain on the face frame itself and the toe kick area. Because believe it or not, if you're not very experienced with this stuff, the stain will bleed underneath the tape. So you will definitely want to keep that stain off of any areas that we don't intend to, with or without the paper. Okay, so let's get started. Of course, we want to get some other things like the satin clear lacquer for this particular cabinet job, some lacquer thinner, rags. Don't forget your respirator and other stain application tools like that brush down there, a mixing paddle, and then we can get back to work. Now it's time to go ahead and do the stain work. I'm going to go ahead and start off here with some Old Masters wiping stain in the American Walnut, and I've also got a 2-inch stain brush. So we're going to go ahead and coat the face frame of it, and as we work the stain kind of out of the brush a little bit, we're going to go in here to the inside edge and carefully put the stain on here. Like I mentioned earlier, the tape along this inside edge here seals pretty good, but it's going to bleed through. So we definitely don't want to tempt fate and have these beautiful maple, it's all going to be finished clear. So the beautiful maple cabinets have any stain residue on it, okay? It'll bleed through, all that stuff. So let's get started. Let's take our brand new brush out of the package here. Just just a little bit here, because a little bit goes a long way. Just go ahead and start putting on the stain. Now, earlier I've already gone ahead and sanded all the cabinets with a 150 grit. So of course the screen paper here is also meant to, in case you grab the wood and it flickers a little bit, puts a little stain on it. We don't have to be quite as careful, but you definitely still want to be careful. All right, let me give you an idea what this is going to look like here. Grab my rag. Go ahead and wipe a little bit off. Of course, you can feel free to let it, soak in some more. Here on the plywood sample, you can go ahead and see that the client went ahead and selected this American Walnut. This is roughly what it'll look like on the plywood. So we want to make sure we achieve that color, in the end. So clearly, let it soak in a little bit more. Might need a second coat. Alright, so now you can see that we're all done putting on the American Walnut stain, just on the surface of the face frame here on the inside, but leaving the maple cabinet itself unfinished, because the client would like to have clear maple. Alright, so the next step after this is going to be taking some sanding sealer, using a Graco HVLP gun. So we're going to spray the surface. Once that dries, we'll sand it down, making sure it's perfectly smooth like a car finish. Then applying some satin lacquer. Okay, well let's get started with that. Today we'll be using a Graco Nova 395 PC for our spray paint rig today. And then we have loaded up the Sherwood high build Lacquer Easy Sealer. So I've loaded this straight into the paint rig, not diluted at all, and we're going to go ahead and apply it to the cabinets. This is different than when we do the lacquer finish, the clear coat, like a satin lacquer clear coat. we are going to dilute it with 1 part of lacquer thinner and 1 part of lacquer retarder, and those parts are pints. So that's really like adding a quart of various thinners to a gallon per gallon of satin lacquer. All right, so let's get started with the sanding sealer, and we'll go ahead and sand it down. It dries very quick, and it helps smooth out any of the grain. We just got done spraying the Sherwood sanding sealer, which is a high build lacquer easy sealer according to the can here. Now today's a humid day in Texas where it's supposed to be raining here in a little bit, and you can see the whitish vertical stripes on the face of the maple drawer front. So in order to combat that situation, we're going to go ahead and apply some, or mix in some lacquer retarder into the sanding sealer. And so by doing that, we can go ahead and respray the sanding sealer over the top of this, and all of those white marks will disappear. So now that we have the first coat of sanding sealer applied, and all of this has been sanded down, including the whole drawer box inside and out, so it's got a nice smooth finish to it, the next step is we're just going to go ahead and vacuum off all of this dust here. So we want to get all this dust off of all the little grain, corners, inside the box, etc., get a nice clean surface. So I'd usually, vacuum it, take a rag and wipe it down. You can feel free to use a tack cloth. It's never been my personal preference. But then we'll be ready to go ahead and apply the second coat of sanding sealer. Once the second coat of sanding sealer is applied, you'll see the difference between basically the clear coat, for the first coat, a clear coat, and you'll see a little bit of the grain depth. So with the second coat of clear coat, you'll see the color part of the grain, but you won't see the actual kind of like fibers. It'll be perfectly smooth after you sand off that orange peel. All right, moving on to the next step. We're going to be vacuuming all this off and then coating it with the satin lacquer. So I've got the pressure set, not all the way up. I prefer to go somewhere in the middle to sort of middle high. Obviously you want to go ahead and check the spray, make sure it's something that will work for you. If you have any drips like I just saw on the paper here, then maybe we need to increase the pressure a bit. Okay, make sure all of your components are tight, which I know I checked earlier. But we want to be able to spray the cabinet and not have drips. Not too critical with something like sanding sealer, because we can always sand that out if we want to spend the time, doing that. But definitely important when we're going ahead and spraying the final finish of satin lacquer. All right. Let's get this turned up. Where we'll want to start first here is on the inside back. Some people might be tempted to start on the face frame here, all of that, but really as you're reaching around and in, you don't want to be touching it. So let's go ahead and get started on the far back parts of the ledger board, the side panels, working from basically top to bottom. On the back side, moving towards the front, do the back side of another piece of plywood, moving towards the front, and finally the bottom. Okay? And I highly recommend wearing a respirator while doing this, because with the lacquer fumes, you'll get high if you don't wear one of these. A dust mask or any other less effective mask is really just not going to matter for this particular job. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so we're done applying all of the stain to the cabinets, the doors and drawers. I went ahead and just applied the stain to the drawer faces and the doors and not the drawer boxes, so I like to see the maple drawer boxes just clear coated. So after staining, we're going to go ahead and use this Sherwin-Williams Sherwood Pro High Build Lacquer Easy Sealer. It's basically an undercoater. So I just go ahead and spray that on without thinning it. When it comes to the satin lacquer finish, you can use any sheen you like, but I prefer to use the satin on most of my cabinet jobs. We're gonna take, Sherwin-Williams also sells these sanding pads. They're my favorite. It's much better than sandpaper. So this is a 150 grit. They sell numerous grits, but of course anything less is just gonna end up leaving some scratches. 220 might be a little bit of a bear to, you know, make it a quick process. So anyways, I went ahead and sanded this door here. You can see the layer of fine dust. The biggest thing that I'm looking for is orange peel. So this particular, all these doors and drawers here, they have two coats. So I went ahead and sprayed the first coat, you know, lightly knocked off the orange peel surface. Doesn't have to be super perfect because I want to be careful not to go down too far and actually, you know, hit the stained wood layer. So I went ahead and applied a second coat. It makes a huge difference in the quality of the finish. And then we're going to go ahead and sand this down. So if you're familiar with an orange, you know it's got little bumps. So in car finishing, automotive finishing, you know, they want to get rid of the orange peel as much as possible, and especially in higher end car finishes. So I got a light set up to where I can see that when I sand across it, you know, there's a little bit of an orange peel layer, and I'm going to try and make all that go smooth. Okay? So once we get all of that smoothed out, you might have to focus on a little area here and there, but you can tell because it's just, you know, nice and, this might sound weird, a little nice and dusty, but you can tell that there's no slightly glossy parts that haven't been touched. So it looks, it has like a little bit of a dull finish. So anyways, once we get all of this sanded down, I'll be ready for my satin lacquer clear coat. And so that's pretty much about it. It's a pretty simple process. Any homeowner or contractor can learn this stuff. Just have to be patient, plan enough time into the job. Alright, until our next coat with the satin lacquer, I'll see you soon. So now that we went ahead and finished sanding our first coat of sanding sealer, we're going to go ahead and apply another one. I've got my Graco spray gun all pressurized with the Easy Sanding Sealer from Sherwin-Williams. Personally, I like to get started with spraying the inside of the box, and that way you can reach over without getting the sanding sealer on you. And then we can go ahead and spray the outside of the box, and I usually leave the drawer front or door for last. Okay? Don't forget your respirator. I like to have a good light source so that way I can see just how perfectly shiny it is. and make sure that I don't create any spots that happen to have or will run, you know? All right, so, quick touch there, good to go. Okay, so now we're on the final step of finishing. We've put 2 coats of sanding sealer on this cabinet drawer box and all the doors, sanded it down in between coats. Now we're ready to go ahead and spray the final coat. Everything's been vacuumed off and dusted, so we are ready to go. Okay, let's put on some satin lacquer and go from there. Alright, so we're going to need to give it about an hour to dry. Then we'll be able to install all of these drawers. So I'm going to go ahead and get to finishing the rest of them, and I'll show you what the final product looks like. So here we're at the master bathroom that I just got done with. I built the cabinets out of clear maple, stained it and finished it with 2 coats of sanding sealer, sanded really smooth, and then 1 coat of satin lacquer. The cabinets are stained to match the client's furniture. On the floor, we have a 6-inch by 24-inch wood grain tile, bringing that natural effect. Followed by creme of marfil marble. It's just simulated ceramic tile. The client went with a champagne bronze hardware. We have 2 shampoo niches off to the left. It's 24 inches wide, about 11 5/8 tall is the tile. So the shampoo niche, each one is about maybe 3/4 to an inch less in height, but it fits those bottles beautifully. And we have a real piece of creme marfil marble stone, 2-inch square tile, a nice ebby drain with a little hair catcher inside that you can't see. And a detachable shower head. All this is made by Delta. And we have some frameless shower glass door.